Hello plant people, how are you guys doing today? If you're new around here, my name's Ashley and I'm a soil scientist. On this channel, I like to take that science and apply it to all things plants. And in today's video, we're doing another soil amendment video specifically requested by you guys because quite a few of you actually asked me to talk about rice husks. So that's what we are doing today. If you haven't hit that subscribe button already, be sure to do so. Stop lurking. This is probably honestly the third or fourth video you've watched with my face in it. So it means you like me and the group just a little bit. So hit that subscribe button, give us a Christmas miracle thumbs up, and let's just hop right into it. As always, with these videos, we're going to be talking about three main features because in my mind, those are the three main features that dictate everything from microbial survival populations to the nutrients that's available to the ability for the plant to grow big, happy, and healthy. And that is cation exchange capacity, the pH, and the porosity. If you don't know what any three of those mean, I suggest you check out this playlist up here. Start at the very beginning and work your way through. It's like a how-to guide and kind of a crash course in soil science. I hope you enjoy it. So rice husks are very interesting, and I'm so glad you guys sent this to me as a recommendation. This is a very new product when it comes to being available on a wider scale across the globe. It is a byproduct, and it also has some really unique properties to it, but it also does have some cons or some negative sides. So we're going to be going through all of them start to finish. And hopefully at the end of this, you'll be able to make your decision as to whether you want rice husk or not. I am going to leave an Amazon link down below if you wanted to grab some rice husks. I do not put anything in the Amazon store that I do not believe is valuable, and I do see some merits to this product. So it has made it into the world of Amazon. One of the most interesting things about the rice husk is that it's actually a sustainable or environmentally friendly product. It is a complete byproduct from making or producing one of the world's most valuable and widely purchased grains, and that is rice. Typically what would happen when it would be harvesting wheat or barley or rye or flax or any sort of grain for that matter, what it would do is it would normally just drive through the field. Inside of that combine, we now have a combine that not only swaths, or in some cases it swaths, and threshes and then leaves us with two products. We end up with the chaff, which ends up out the back end, and then we end up with the kernel, which is completely dehulled and spit out the back end and actually placed back on the field. In previous times, it probably was just thrown out, but they've started to find uses for the byproduct of rice husks. Now, what makes it, the statement that it's sustainable, environmentally friendly is slightly misleading in the sense that because it's not being put back into the system, it's being taken out of, we somehow have to get the nutrients, and in this case silica, which we'll get into a bit later, back into that system. So there would have to be some form of fertilizer, both on a micronutrient level and a macronutrient level when growing rice. That just is how it goes because we're taking so much away and we're putting very little biomass back. So when we're harvesting most other grains, we're actually spitting out and kind of almost mulching the top of our land after we're done. So they say it's environmentally friendly and sustainable, which it is. It is a very good product for that, but slightly misleading because it's not acting the same way as it should in another system. So, I mean, it's a great product. It is environmentally friendly. It is sustainable, but obviously we need to replenish what's been taken away somehow, and that's usually through fertilizer. Now, whether that's organic or inorganic, it doesn't matter. It just has to be replenished in some sense. We can't just keep on taking and not putting anything back. So what makes rice husks so specifically interesting is actually the silica content. So rice naturally is a hyperaccumulator for silica. And what that means, and we've talked about hyperaccumulators before and how they exist and where they exist, but there are certain plants that have a higher affinity to certain nutrients. Now that could be nutrients and also could be toxins in some cases. So in this case, it's silica. They are hyperaccumulators for silica, meaning they're able to take up more silica from the soil, regardless of what nooks and crannies it's stuck in, and actually put it into the biomass of the plant. Which means when we harvest it and we use it as a soil amendment, it's almost acting like a fertilizer or a micronutrient fertilizer in a sense that adds a ton of silica back in the soil. The downfall of this is that silica is not a nutrient that shows up. There's no signs of deficiency generally when you have a silica deficiency in your soil. And in general, soil, not potting medium, so not peat moss or coconut coir, but soil naturally has a high level of silica. So it's very rare that we would run into a silica deficiency. The only time when we would run into a silica deficiency is actually when we're growing a hyper-accumulating crop such as rice. Over time, that soil will have a silica deficiency because we've taken so much silica out of the system. So you're probably wondering, well, if it doesn't show up as a deficiency, how is it affecting the plant in any way for good or for bad, if it's there or if it's not? And silica is one of those nutrients that is just starting to be looked at a little bit more, but it is actually very important to the cell wall structure. And it's one of the building blocks that makes cell walls thicker and tougher. What this means is that plant can be more drought resistant because it has a thicker cell wall, meaning it's able to hold on to moisture better, all the way to resistance to bacterial infections, pests, fungal infections, and almost anything that, would come into the plant through penetration of that cell wall. So the thicker that is, the better built up it is, the higher resistance we have. If you're living in an area with lots of drought or really high heat and you're looking for a solution, rice husks may be the solution for quite a few different reasons. We'll get into more of the physical properties later. It is a great fertilizer for that. Also really great for potting soil medium, so coconut coir based, peat moss based, anything that's not soil based. It's really good in that sense because of the silica that's located in the rice husks. It will help build up stronger cell walls because those potting mediums in general are generally over time and just in the beginning are a little bit low on the silica side. The exception to this would be something that's been fortified or had some sort of nutrients added into it, which may be the case for what some companies do. So because it is an organic material, it does biodegrade. So regardless of where you put this stuff, if it's in a potting soil medium or in the ground, it will over time biodegrade, meaning it's just simply going to decompose and disappear. It depends on where you are, and I stress this when I talk about eggshells and banana peels. I talk about this when I talk about any sort of organic material, whether it be compost or manure. It depends on where you are as to how readily that nutrients or how bioavailable that nutrients is going to become over time. So if you're in a warmer climate, it could be 6 months. If you're in a colder climate like me, you could be pushing 5+ years. So it all depends. If you are in a warmer climate, the physical side or the physical property, what rice husk does, is going to be limited. It's not going to perform in the way that you're wanting it to or the way that I'm discussing it in this video. If you're using rice husks for more so nutrient and adding silica mainly for nutrients, then yes, this is going to work for you. The other side of this is if you are in Canada and you're wanting to use this for nutrients and you're using it in an outdoor setting and not maybe for house plants, then the physical property side is what you're using it for, not so much the nutrient side, because that's not going to be readily available for many, many years down the road. If you are using it for the nutrient side, you're solely using it as an insurance policy for the future. It's just as simple as that. Now, one thing that a lot of the companies that I saw were pushing when they're trying to sell this stuff is using it as a mulch. This is, very silly. If you're living in any sort of area with any sort of wind, this is probably the worst mulch you could ever use. it will blow away very, very quickly. If anyone stood behind a combine after it's finished threshing and the shaker tables at the back are letting everything fall off, it's a literal cloud of dust. This stuff is very, very light, and it floats on wind very, very easily. So this is not a great mulch. It needs to be incorporated into the soil. It has a very neutral pH, so it's a pH of 7, meaning it's going to work very well in an acidic or in an alkaline soil to help level out the pH level. Now, I wouldn't recommend putting a ton of this stuff into your soil. So I don't think it's going to do anything revolutionary for your soil, but I also think that as it biodegrades, because of the nature of it and because it's a very cellulose fibrous material, I do think that when it does begin to degrade, it's not going to become heavily acidic or anything crazy. It's not going to be like sphagnum moss. I would assume it's going to hold that pH of 7 throughout the whole thing. Although I couldn't find any studies on this stuff as it biodegraded in the system and how it affected pH. It's so new to the market as a soil amendment that there's very little being done with it in regards to lab work and stuff. So I wasn't able to find the answer to that, but in the beginning it's a 7, and just judging from the nature of the product, I would think it's going to hold that 7 throughout the whole process. One thing for physical properties, it's not the greatest at aeration. If anything, it's mediocre. It's temporarily going to add aeration. As it decomposes, obviously, it's going to decrease its ability to add aeration to the soil. However, it is very inexpensive. I was looking, and I mean, you can get 50 pounds of this stuff for like $25. It's so cheap. It's unbelievable. So if you wanted to try it in a clay soil, in heavy clay soil, just to see what it did, it's incredibly affordable. If you're in a hot area, you're probably gonna have to re-add that every year. If you're in a colder climate and you're wanting to add rice husk for aeration to a clay soil, then you're probably gonna have to add it every 3 or so years, or maybe every year until you get to a level where you're happy with the level of aeration, and then you'd have to add every 2 years or something like that. But overall, I think it's really great in regards to the pH being at a 7. I think it's really great for adding silica, which is very helpful to a lot of gardeners if you're trying to prevent things like pests or disease. I also think it's very valuable to the structure of the soil. If you have a soil that has low aeration and you're wanting to try it out, then please do. It works great in a potting soil system for aeration, but it's not a pumice, it's not a perlite. It can't replace those in that sense. I would say its number one aspect, and the thing that makes it undeniably valuable, is its ability to add silica back into the system. I would probably place it in a soil system similar to a vermiculite. Slight aeration, slight moisture retention, but nothing miracle working wise on either end. Hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below if you use rice husks, if you've thought of using rice husks, what this video makes you think about using rice husks. I'd be interested to try it just to see how my cell walls react to it. Like if I do get a tougher plant that's less flimsy, I'd be interested to see that if it's notable, like if you can physically note it between just a regular potting soil and a potting soil with rice husk in it. I don't think I'd use it outdoors, mostly because I don't know how much you'd have to add of it, and I don't think the aeration properties are something to write home about. I think that there's probably better alternatives than rice husks if you're trying to add aeration. I think it's mostly on a fertilizer front, and I would treat it more as a micronutrient additive, so something that's added every once in a while, every few years. I think it would be great for houseplant application. I think it'd be great for outdoor plant application, as long as it's in a potting soil medium. I want to thank you guys for watching. I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.